loud. Today's topic is love on a spectrum. Our first quote, our first quote today is from Dr. Ernest Holmes. The essence of love, while elusive, pervades everything, fires the heart, stimulates the emotions, renews the soul, and proclaims the spirit. Our next quote is from Bell Hooks. Whether we are engaged in a process of self-love or of loving others, we must move beyond the realm of feeling to actualize love.
You know what? How about read that again? Dan just moved it over. One more time.
Okay. Our next quote is from Bell Hooks. Whether we are engaged in a process of self-love or of loving others, we must move beyond the realm of feeling to actualize love. Make it real. This is why it is useful to see love as a practice. Let us affirm together with passion. I embrace who I am and the Holy Spirit that expresses itself as me. And now I bring back to you Reverend Dr. Catholic.
So much. Those two quotes I just found particularly inspiring. You know, I run across a lot of different ones. But one of the things that I think stood out for me, and Carolyn actually spoke of it when she was doing our opening prayer, is the idea that spirit pervades all and spirit is love. So love pervades all. So you may be asking yourself, if love pervades all, then why war? Why conflict? Why divisiveness? All of those other things. And of course, our understanding is because we're individualizations of the divine, we each have free will. And free will means we get to choose, and we have an infinite number of possibilities in what we choose. So love is present, however, we need to actualize it, to have it come into expression. So what does that mean? That means that our thoughts, our words, and our actions are to be the embodiment of love. So if we want to experience more love in the world, then it's up to us. That's the key. So the beautiful thing is, and this is where our spiritual teaching really serves us, is we are beings who direct the flow of creation through our thoughts, words, and actions, by what we focus on, by what we pay our attention to. And so that just really helps us to stand, just as we did at the beginning of the service and other times, in our creative power, and to be very conscious about how we do things. And if we slip, forgive ourselves. Somebody else slips, forgive them, and move on, because we also are affected by the consciousness of the collective that Ernest Holmes calls race, for human race consciousness, and we're affected by our conditioning from the time that we're very young. So self-compassion is important, and just moving forward. Okay, I forgive myself, I forgive others, and moving forward. Re-rooting and re-grounding in actualizing love. So I'd like to illustrate some of the ways that's happening in the greater centers for spiritual living. I love this, that they have the young adults, the next generation, young adults between ages of 18 and 35 have their own retreat. Did you know that? It's called the CSL Next Gen Retreat. They come from all over the world, again, 18 to 35 young adults, and they gather at this retreat. It's annually, and it helps them to grow in love and also prepare to be the leaders that they are meant to be, to go back to their home communities with some new awareness, with a higher level, a greater perspective, and to be a greater embodiment of this thing that we call love. Here's some of the things that I find really cool about it. Well, first of all, I have been to several different conferences with CSL. It is so much fun to go to a conference and they're singing the same songs that we sing here, very similar songs. Every once in a while there'll be one that's different, but it's like all these songs that we've sung all the years. This great big huge group of several thousand people, get together and are singing these same songs. It's really such a joy. Well, that's what the Next Gen group experience as well. So singing similar songs and also sharing these beautiful teachings of science of mind and spirit. So consensus is at the forefront of this event, and this is what they do. So all attendees are invited to develop a common set list of agreements. Consensus means that every agreement is accepted only when there is 100% agreement. Loving discussion allows for the group to assemble a living document to ensure that everyone feels heard and centered in an atmosphere in which each is free to be authentically who they are and to be honored for who they are. So participants' name tags include not only their names, but also their pronouns and, listen to this, their hug preferences. Their hug preferences. Because some people don't want to be hugged and some people do want to be hugged. So it gives them an opportunity to express that. So the 4 days of workshops on topics such as self-love, authenticity, diversity, forgiveness, and empowerment. Again, things that support these young adults to go back to their communities, enriched, uplifted, and with new skills and a higher level of consciousness. So today my intention is to emphasize that as an emanation of divine perfection, that every unique person is perfect just the way they are, and each expresses loving relationships in their own unique ways, and that is perfect just the way it is. So when you think about spirit, right? Infinite love. And then we have this thing called freedom of choice. There's a whole myriad of possibilities in ways that we express loving relationship. And so finally, so we're talking about this full spectrum of loving relationship. And finally, I'm going to be talking about discomfort, which turns out to be a very vital part of growing in love, because it is a catalyst, it is an evolutionary driver that motivates us to abandon the blocks to love and to step into a more mature, actually spiritually mature way of loving. So let's do the first one. We are perfect just the way we are in all of our diverse ways of being and loving. I'd like to share with you a quote by Mary Jane Yates in her book called Diversity Matters. She said, "Imagine a world where sunsets are always the same color, where forests have the same trees, where food has only one flavor, and when we are tuned into our senses and the natural world," she says, "it's easy to recognize the importance of diversity." And we hear all the time the importance of biodiversity for the survival of the different aspects of the planet, actually for the entire planet. And so she says, so why is it that we seem to have such difficulty in embracing the diversity within our own species? We see a different lifestyle and we might deem it wrong or immoral. We hear an opposing viewpoint and judge it as uninformed or radical. Yet according to ecologists, a world without diversity in biology and human culture will not survive. Let's breathe that in. So, as emanations of spirit with infinite possibilities, who we are is who we are meant to be. Each one of us showed up in this moment of history in our particular communities for a divine purpose. That divine purpose meaning to express our authentic selves in all ways, regardless of how people react. So there's no reason to feel shame for any aspect of our being or how we relate to others. And that means that God does not make mistakes. I love that comment. I heard that like years ago, but it's a powerful thing to remember. God does not make mistakes. We are divinely designed. Our gender identities, sexual orientations, ethnic heritages are things that we are born with, and they are our divine imprints that are to be expressed. And not only expressed, but celebrated. So love expresses on a spectrum is the next piece. And I want to start with a quote from the Science of Mind textbook by Ernest Holmes. He said, "The love of God is the divine givingness, the eternal outpouring of spirit through creation. The love of God then is forever outpouring in us, through us, and as us." And that means in that full spectrum of loving relationships. And what I like to say is adult love relationships in which there is consent. Because I also don't want to give people the idea that it's okay to go and have a relationship with a minor who's not, whether they're consenting or not. We're talking about mature adult relationships. Consensual relationships. So if we want to shift human consciousness toward acceptance of the infinite variety of mature, loving relationships between consensual adults, then it's important that we live those relationships out loud rather than in secret. Being open and honest helps to normalize different ways of expressing love. And it inspires others who may have not come out with who they are to embrace their own expressions of love. So let's breathe that in. And give you a moment to just reflect. So love expresses on a spectrum is what that was about. Let's now address discomfort. I get it that we gravitate toward comfort. That's what we want to, that's our nature. And yet discomfort mentally, emotionally, and physically serves as an evolutionary driver. It pushes us to grow in love. So think about it. What brought you to the teachings of Science of Mind? What was it that brought you? I know I can't speak for you, but I know for me it was discomfort. It was discomfort in almost every area of my life. And I had tried all different kinds of things. I tried to fix everything, in the external way. And what this teaching taught me is that it's inner work. That we do the inner work, and when we shift in consciousness, then our actions and everything follow. So I thank God that I found Science of Mind back in 1990 through a woman by the name of Sally Orr, whose She was actually the very first practitioner here. She traveled, she was working as a teacher, and she traveled during the week to take classes down in Falls Church, Virginia, at what's now Celebration Center for Spiritual Living, to become a practitioner and to start something here in Delaware. And Sally Orr's mother has a foundation that generously gives our community money every year. We're really blessed that that continues to flow and support us. So discomfort. So the discomfort, of course, comes from, it's done unto us as we believe. There's the principle. That came out of the mouth of the master teacher, Jesus. It's done unto us as we believe. So what is it that we do? We change our beliefs. We also realize that we live in a culture and we live with other people who have beliefs that are maybe not in alignment. And so as we change our own beliefs, we get out there and we become active to work at shifting and changing things also in the external world. So it begins within. And we know when people just go out there and try to change things without doing the inner work, it can be a huge mess. So we begin within, we do our best to do our inner work, and it's an ongoing process, I can tell you personally. And then we do our part in helping to shift and change the perspectives in alignment with let's show up as love to the best of our ability. And the changing of the beliefs that we talk about here are shifting into alignment with spiritual truth, who we are in truth, emanations of the one source, the presence of love individualized, divine wisdom in expression, infinite harmony, and so on. So as I learned and used the Science of Mind principles, as I took classes, and I just hit the ground running when I found this teaching. I was so excited about it. Took one class after the other, went all the way through, and stepped into a way of being and showing up that was very different from the way I was raised. And that's why it takes the classes. It takes the classes to shift all of those old paradigms of a God outside there who's going to punish you and all of that stuff, to understand that God is love. We make that contact within, and then we begin to demonstrate that in our lives through our power of choice. So we have Quick Start coming up. Taking classes, applying the principles. It's a great opportunity for new folks. It's a great opportunity for those of you who've been around for a while and just want to re-immerse yourself in it. I invite everybody to attend. Again, it's right after service. It's free. It's on September 24th and October 1st. Put it on your calendars. Show up. Be there and give yourself the gift of this amazing spiritual teaching that transforms lives. And as we change our beliefs, then we begin to develop healthier, more loving relationships. Our uncomfortable experiences then serve us to shift our beliefs, if we understand that that's how we can use that. Discomfort in my marriage with Dan guided me to use Science of Mind principles and prayer. I just hit the ground running with really working on that. And Dan knows what I'm talking about, and he's heard this, so he's on board with this. I'm not like sneaking up and...
No, please don't do that. Don't talk about us. Not a relationship.
So we had our early years were really rocky, and it's interesting. After prayer and so on, this book, and I can't even tell you how it fell into my hands, called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, showed up. Anybody read that book? Yes! 5 Love Languages. It is a Christian book, and it is also very principle-based. And so I read it, and I'm like, light bulbs are going off, and then I asked Dan to read it. I shared with him a little bit about it. We had been to marriage counseling, and we had learned that we were missing what the other person was wanting. There's a lot of miscommunication and ways of showing up. Well, this book really helped to pinpoint it. It says that there are basically 5 love languages that people give, and consider that's giving love, or that they want to receive from others, which means love to them. So here they are. Words of affirmation, that's one of them. Presence, that means either a gift or a gift of yourself. Deeds of service, physical contact, and quality time spent together. So here's me. I'll just share how I show up. And actually, it's shifted and changed a little bit over the years. But for me, receiving love was about receiving affirmation and also quality time. For me, giving love is through service and words of affirmation. So I affirm people, but also in service. For Dan, he receives love through physical contact. And he gives love as service. So Dan was showing me love by asking me to leave the kitchen and go relax while he cooked. Now, I appreciate that now, but at the time, I did not like that at all, because my role was, as a woman, was to cook the meals, and don't get me out of the kitchen and go relax. So there was some real frustration there, and I was not feeling loved, and of course he was not feeling loved. He was like, but I'm giving you acts of service. You're supposed to appreciate this. So that was one of the bones of contention. Also, you can imagine, Dan wanted physical contact, and I was affirming him. And for him, that was like, don't waste my time affirming me. Tell me how what I have done has made a difference for you, So there was a lot of miscommunication going on, and there was a lot of misunderstandings of how, what our love languages were and how to shift that. So I remember when Dan first learned about mine was quality time, he says, okay, let's sit down and watch a football game together. It's like, no, that is not quality time for me. So anyway, we've learned, we've shifted, we've changed, and we've developed a deep understanding of each other. And in fact, one of the things that Dan does is, as soon as he listens to my talk, he sits down and takes off his shirt so that I can give him a back rub.
Okay, now you're going too far.
So here's the thing. It helps to be aware of what other people's love languages are. And again, I'll say, and Dan actually is going to put them up on the board again in a few minutes, but words of affirmation, presence, deeds of service, physical contact, quality time spent together. That was so earth-shatteringly important in our relationship. And this isn't just about, close love partnerships. It's also with others, and I must say that I'm not always completely aware of what other people's love languages are. So I do try to. I tend to affirm and say thank you to people a lot, but I also understand that I need to be aware that they might just simply want to say what you do makes a difference for the service people. and spend quality time with the quality time people. And it's important that we communicate this with each other too, and let each other know what our love language is, so that we can support each other in that way. The other thing that I've learned that I think is very important, because I am love, even if I don't get it right, I can know my intention is love and I can do my best. But I also understand that as I give love in whatever form it is, that I grow in love. I can feel the love. Giving is receiving. That is a very powerful thing to be aware of. Giving is receiving love. It's expanding and growing in love. So love exists on I'm just going to conclude this now. Love exists on a spectrum of infinite ways of being expressed. And that means diversity, diverse ways of expressing self and our relationships. And openly exploring our personal ways of loving inspires us then to be accepting of others and the way that they express love. So let's yawn and stretch. This is neuroscience. This lets us know that this helps us to get re-centered, re-attuned, turns the brain on. And let's turn within now after that yawning and stretching and ask yourself, what is my love language? What do I like to give? And what do I like to receive? Just contemplate that for a moment. Dan, you're going to put those up, right? The 5 love languages so they can see them? Okay, so let's just contemplate that for a moment. How do I like to give love, and how do I like to receive love? And when you're ready, and if you're willing, you don't have to do this, I invite you to turn to someone else, 1 or 2 other people, and share what you've just learned about your particular love languages. How you give it and how you receive it, again, can be different. Okay. All right, I'm going to keep this short because the service is moving along. So let's share quickly. Let's just celebrate these new awarenesses with a powerful yes, and so it is. Namaste, my friends.